Hi, I'm Ken Jacobson, Senior Documentary Programmer, AFI Festivals. Welcome, everyone. We're thrilled to have with us Brandon Kramer, the director of The First Step, and special guests Van Jones, Douglas Copenhaver, Lonnie Jones, and Tylo James. Our moderator for this conversation is Russell Contreras. Russell Contreras is the Justice and Race reporter at Axios, covering the policies and agencies at the heart of the administration of justice and how it impacts people of color. Russell, thank you so much for leading this conversation. Please take it away.
And Ken, thank you. I want to start off with you, Van. We just saw the film, it's very powerful. There were a number of moments where we all conclude that we've never seen Van like this. You were emotionally exposed. You were very vulnerable. How did this project come about? Because I picture someone coming to you and say, we'd love to film you, follow you around. We'd love to get your reaction to the haters on Twitter. We'd love to get the reaction to folks coming at you, questioning your motives. How was this project pitched to you, and how did this product end up?
Not like that. That's how it was pitched. No, look, I've known the Kramer brothers for a while. They did a documentary on green jobs. You know, I was Obama's green jobs advisor, and they did a documentary on green jobs that we came in near the end as producers to help them get done. And then we did a Webby Award-winning series together called The Messy Truth, where I went into the homes of Trump supporters right before the election and tried to have conversations. And so, you know, they kind of knew me and I knew them, and we were just talking, and it just seemed like we were no matter what happened, we were on the edge of history being made because Trump had been elected and nobody knew what was going to happen. And I knew that I wasn't going to stop the fight for criminal justice reform. We had made some bipartisan headway under Obama, which I'm quite proud of, but we hadn't gotten a federal bill done. And I knew I was going to stay in the fight and try to figure out a way forward. We didn't know what we were going to do. When we first started, there was no bill. I had never met Jared Kushner. I certainly never met Donald Trump. We just wanted to, you know, to fight and figure out some way if we could find a way out of no way. And so they, you know, started hanging around with the cameras, and you saw the result.
And Brandon, you took a different turn to this. We're focusing on Van. We're seeing some of his hopes and dreams and some of the things that he wanted to work on. And then you take us to Los Angeles and West Virginia. I kept thinking of Robert Kennedy in the 1960s trying to bridge the Mississippi Delta, Appalachia, the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. You took two populations that we believe would probably never interact with each other, but you got them together and they found kinship. How did that go around?
Is it a question for Brandon or for Van?
That's a question for Brandon, you, because that's your camera.
For me.
That you took it. It may have been Van's,
I see.
Yeah, his ethos, but you had to take the camera and take us there.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, when we started this film, Van said, I am going to do everything I can through these 4 years of the Trump administration to do everything I can to work across these dividing lines when it comes to addiction, when it comes to criminal justice reform. And, you know, obviously, given how divisive the moment was, we just felt that Van was clearly going to be taking a huge leap of faith in trying to work across these dividing lines over this incredibly polarized time in American history. And we just felt like it was a really, really critical story to tell. And so we did not know how it would end up. And we felt like bridge building is such a, you know, it's often said we can't work across these dividing lines. You know, it's impossible to bring anyone together. Well, we knew Van was going to try in one of the most toxic and polarized times in history. And we felt that that would be an important historical document for the public to engage with, to see where is bridge building actually possible, that people aren't seeing it. Where are the challenges? Where are the struggles? How can we have a conversation around what is possible and where the struggles are? So that was the impetus behind it. And with LA and West Virginia, I mean, Tylo and Doug can speak to it better than anybody, but, you know, for Van, you know, Van was like, I'm going to work I want to work with political leaders across the aisle, and I want to work on a grassroots level. I want to, it's equally as important to see how pain in these and struggles in these different communities, where there can be found common ground on those issues. And so we basically just followed, Van set out to do this work, and we felt it was critical to capture it, in every way, shape, and form. And bridge building on a political level, Van working with Jared Kushner is very different than what the experience was like in West Virginia, sitting in a diner, having, and being there to capture these really amazing and beautiful moments between Tylo and Dee and Doug and Fabian. So, we just felt like the top-down bipartisanship that Van was after and the bottom-up bipartisanship that Van was after was just critical to telling this story.
And Tyler, what about you? When they come to you and say, hey, look, we'd like you to engage in conversations in West Virginia, what was going through your mind when you're saying, okay, as a Black queer person, I'm going to have to leave my safe space of Los Angeles to engage in a greater good? What was going through your mind when that proposition was presented to you?
Ooh, thank you for the question. Many things are going through my mind. What do we possibly have in common was one of the biggest ones. I felt very strongly about the difference of political views and ideologies. And I was not sure about, excuse me, where any of this would land. I was apprehensive, but after talking to Brandon, to Lance, to Van, I really got to see the importance of it.
And Doug, there were some emotional moments when you finally meet the delegation from California. You guys, after a few intros, are opening up and sharing these stories that we find are universal. And there were these moments where I did feel that you guys were developing kinship. Walk me through that. Was that something that you ever thought could happen, or did you solely see that this was inevitable?
Well, the first meeting we did have was in the southern part of West Virginia at a little diner, and our first conversation at the breakfast table was to pair us up with other West Virginia, with South Central LA, and we found out that we had a lot in common. We were fighting the same issues with the drug addiction for years over in LA, and what hasn't been so long here in West Virginia. But I teamed up with Fabian, and wonderful individual, and we got a lot accomplished that first day on that. We're not so different after all. And the one thing I'll say about each and everybody on the film is each and every one of us are fighters. We fight for what we stand for, and fight strong.
And Tyler, back to you. Of course, that there was that tense moment when you guys are talking politics, and it seems like you guys are going to agree to disagree. But when you guys were sharing stories, it seemed like there was a connection because everybody was getting emotional. You put down your guard. Did you find that connection that you thought may have not been there before?
Yes. I believe that I had the opportunity to see folks' humanity. I think that when we strip away all of the things that keep us apart or that we think keep us apart, race, class, geographical location, all those things, we really got to see the humanity of each other, and to realize that like the same emotions that I'm experiencing, the conversations and the ideas and the thoughts and the impact of the crack epidemic in South Central Los Angeles is very similar to the opioid epidemic in West Virginia. And all of the feelings that come with that, they can relate to, and I can relate to, and we built community and a bridge on that.
And Doug, when you guys went to Los Angeles, what is it that you saw that rung true to your heart that was hitting close to home?
Well, the first thing we did there was to go to the LA Can, which Pete White, my friend Pete White, was running as a nonprofit, and walk the streets of Skid Row. And it was devastating to see what was going on in Skid Row and how people had lost hope. And we see a lot of that in West Virginia as well. It's not as bad, but it's here. And it was good to see the different culture and understand the different way of looking at life, and a lot of good people.
Now, Lonnie, you came home as a result of the work done in this film and the work that the individuals here took part in. What was your reaction to the film? And more importantly, I want to get your reaction as you heard folks poo-poo or criticize the work, saying, this is all for naught, we shouldn't be doing this. But you, as a result, came home of the work, and then you started your own business, you got on with your life. What was your reaction in watching the film, both the challenges the folks had to do to get this bill passed, and also the reaction to prevent it all up until the end?
Well, watching the film, you know, in prison, you don't see the ins and outs that it takes to get a bill passed. You in prison, you just hoping that something get passed, because, you know, we're in a situation where we need something, we need some help. So as I'm watching the film and I see all the trials and the hardship that came with Vin and his team trying to get this bill passed, I mean, it gives you a lot more gratitude of what people are doing, what Vin and his team are doing, and other people like him trying to get these bills passed. Now, my gratitude is great that he had the compassion to continue to go forward and to continue to push forward, even though he got backlash from different organizations and different groups of that nature. But being that he stood firm upon what he believed in, I'm a result of that. I came home after 20 years in prison, first time nonviolent offender. I came home because Van and his team, they was persistent and consistent on getting things done, no matter what everybody else said. So I am truly grateful for that.
And Van, throughout the film, especially in the beginning, you see your frustration in your face, because you're trying to say, look, don't you know me? I've done this work. My track record should speak for itself. But everybody's questioning you. You even called Twitter, I think you said it shouldn't be called Twitter, it should be called hater. They're coming for you just for deciding, okay, I want to engage to try to get something passed. Where did you come to this conclusion? Like, I'm going to go ahead and take these wounds, I'm going to take these arrows because there's a greater good, and I don't care about the wounds I will suffer to get to that finish line?
Well, I mean, I could say with some bravado that I don't care, but it hurts. And I do care. I just didn't care more than I cared about folks like Lonnie. I just spent too much time in and out of federal prisons. I just know, I mean, this guy was never coming home. Lonnie was never, ever, 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 ever gonna come home for a first-time nonviolent drug offense. And there are lots of people like that. We got 4,000 people like Lonnie out instantly the minute that Trump signed the bill. Well, they were eligible to come home instantly, and then you had to go through all the paperwork. But yeah, I do care. I did care. It was very painful. And, you know, we live in a world where people just know, they'd see the soundbite. So I think a lot of people think I was born on CNN. They don't know I've only been there for a few years. They don't know I did 25 years in the community before I got to CNN. That's how I got to CNN. So, you know, people go with whatever they see on, you know, Instagram, and then everybody piles on, and then they move on, and they don't realize how much time you're spending in therapy and everything else, you know, behind it. Very dehumanizing. And people, but you have to remember, people are also very scared about what Trump was going to become. And the idea that a Black leader was going to go and give Trump the opportunity for a second term or maybe a fifth term was very scary for people. And they said, this dude doesn't know what he's doing. My view, which maybe doesn't come across in the film, I just thought that Black people were a lot smarter than my critics were giving Black people credit for. My critics kept acting like if Trump signed one bill, then all these Black people were going to go and vote for Trump, and then we were going to reelect him. I said, Black people went from property to president in 4 generations. Like, we're not stupid. We can accept a criminal justice bill, and as we did help for Black colleges, and as we did opportunity zones, and still vote as we did in very large numbers for a better overall direction for the country. I just felt that Black people are the most sophisticated political constituency in the Western civilization, in the Western world, and that I didn't buy the crap that we would be fooled. But other people said you're playing with fire. So people were very scared at that time. My hope is that now people who like the Trump administration and people who didn't can look at this film with a different set of eyes. There are other issues. Addiction is one of them. Mental health is one of them. Helping poor kids is one of them. Poor kids from Appalachia to the hood that need people to cross the line, even while we're fighting on everything else. And I hope the film is a blueprint for that, an emotional blueprint and a practical blueprint for that.
And staying on you, Van, but toward the end, there was an emotional moment. You were successful, but there was the camera was zoomed on you and you still looked sad. And I kept thinking of Ella Baker telling young civil rights leaders, if you do good, don't expect a thank you. You just got to move on to the next. I know you weren't expecting the parade. I know you weren't expecting people to sing your praises, especially your haters, but were you at least expecting some more appreciation from some of your critics to say, thank you for getting us to the finish line? Or did you just blow it off and say, my reward is seeing Lonnie walk out?
Well, of course, you can lie and say, yeah, all I cared about was the people and I don't want my peers to like me. That's BS. Everybody wants to be able to come home. Everybody wants to be able to have people say, hey, good job. The crazy part about it was that everybody who tried to stop us from passing the bill and took a dump on me, once the bill passed, they all took credit for it. And they never came back and said one mumbling word. But to me, the best part of the experience really was getting to know, folks like Doug, D, Bikers Against Heroin in West Virginia, and watching these grassroots just superstars in their own right, in their own lane, cross lanes, and then watch them go to DC and seeing them stick up for each other in front of powerful people. You have, Black folks from LA getting in the face of white lawmakers from West Virginia, and you have white grassroots activists from West Virginia talking to the Kamala Harrises of the world. And I just said, look, from my point of view, I watched the film, I feel like, there's obviously a lot of well-known people in the film, but I think that the grassroots, the beauty and the power and the dignity of the grassroots. And what if we did that every day? What if grassroots people every day said, look, we're going to vote against each other, that's fine. And my representative will yell at yours. But in the real world, I'm gonna do everything I can to help you. We have a different country. And I hope people take that from the, look, I had my ups and my downs, but I have a good life. I might do some things differently just because now I'm wiser, but I wouldn't have stayed out of this fight. And what I hope is that people mainly say, what's the fight I can now be a part of with a little bit more encouragement because of this film.
And Brandon, one of the key things I saw in the film is, as I'm watching as an audience, and the audience, I notice that I forget that you're there. When Van and the administration is talking, you got officials, I had to pull back and say, I can't believe he's able to get that footage. How did he agree to sit there and have these intimate conversations? Even when Jared calls Van, you all pull it up and say, that all is lost moment in the documentary. Did you have to go behind the scenes and work with the Trump administration to say, we're making this film about a law you may or may not support? Or did you feel like just showing up, putting your camera there and letting the chips fall where they may? How did that process go on? Because that was something I was just moments I'm like, how is he getting in there with his equipment?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. It's relationship building. It's, first of all, it's going in the front door of, whether it's, Tylo, when you and I met, Community Coalition, Doug, when you and I met, or when we first sat down with Jared or any of the people in the film. I mean, it's every single person that was in this film, I had a conversation with, or Lance, my brother, had a conversation with, or with Van. And we told them what the film was about. And we said really honestly and openly, we are trying to, follow. So on the bill side, with the political leaders, we, told them we're trying to follow the story of the fight to try to get this bill passed. With people who are critical of the bill, we said, we really want to include, it's really important to include people's perspectives, who are not supportive of the bill at this stage. That's a really important piece of this. And, Van, and to Van's credit as well, really getting everyone's perspective was really important on all sides of this. And then, so there's a lot of relationship buildings on the political level, building relationships with the staff and the team, showing up a lot without a camera first. So, so that when you do, I mean, the idea is that Van and his team and Cut 50 were meeting with these political leaders on a regular basis. And so I would go with them at times and I would introduce myself. I'd tell them what the film was about. I try to build a relationship so then we could have access to being able to have the camera more seamlessly, enter the room, have our crew more seamlessly enter the room. And then with LA and West Virginia, I feel like, Doug and Tylo, I feel like we got an opportunity to spend time together before any of the filmmaking was happening and just, get to learn about each other, understand who the people are that you're, telling a story with. So it's just a trust, relationship building, patience. There are lots of days where I would show up, Van and his team would be having a really important meeting. We would show up, just be waiting there, for like 4 or 5 hours, just wondering, are we going to get access to something like that? And then we would and be able to do it. And some days we wouldn't. So just being really patient. And the fundamental rule was always don't get in the way of the work. Van and his team were trying to get a bill passed. And the last thing we wanted was having our camera there. The presence of a film crew was going to jeopardize the work. So it's always, try to build the relationships, be honest, and try to not get in the way of the actual work that was happening.
I think Brandon and his team kind of mastered the art of being just annoying enough, just annoying enough to kind of be there when it was okay. You always ask, hey, Van, can I come? I was like, Brandon, no, shit, man. We're trying, like, I don't want you anywhere near this. Like, okay, but it's okay if we wait in the lobby. Mother, come in. Fine, Brandon, wait in the damn lobby. And then, you get to the point, you go, oh shit, Brandon's out there. You know what? Do you guys mind? And then, sometimes they would mind, sometimes they didn't. But I mean, the level of him just being willing to just sort of hang there. And there were many, many days where he didn't get anything because it was tough stuff. But what I will say, and I hope people notice this, look at every other political documentary. It's B-roll and somebody giving an interview over it. This happened at this meeting, and I remember this meeting, and so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that. It's all reflection. When have you ever seen a camera inside the White House while deliberations happening in Hakeem Jeffries' office while the bill is at stake? That is almost unheard of. And, I give, Jared and the Trump administration a lot of credit for trusting me enough to say, look, I'm coming. We're going to do this crazy stuff. Let's shoot it. To me, the one undeniably beautiful thing that happened during the Trump administration, maybe the only one thing, is passing that bill. And we were able to film a big part of that process. And so we also, I think, were able to get, it's easy to, some of the other things that are happening where you see the grassroots folks talking and interacting. You can't fake that stuff. You can't fake that stuff. I mean, that was real heart-to-heart stuff. And sometimes these guys are across the diner, shooting in and that kind of stuff, just trying to give the people a chance to really get to know each other. And I think there's some real art in that too.
Lonnie, in the few seconds we have left, if I were to tell you when you were in prison that your freedom relied on Los Angeles Tylo and West Virginia Doug, what would you have told me?
I would have thought you was out of your mind. I would have thought you were crazy.
And why so?
Because I fought so hard and so long trying to get out for years, right? And nothing was happening. Nothing was happening. And then for you to come and tell me that this crew right here is going to get me out, I'm like, man, you out of your mind. You out of your mind. I mean, I didn't lose hope in getting out, but I wouldn't have had no hope in that.
You know, I just want to clarify. Everybody who was a part of the West Virginia and LA coalition or alliance, they weren't necessarily directly working on the bill or supportive of the bill.
Right.
But what was happening is that they were a part of just creating this environment where more was possible. So when we went and talked to when we would bring them to talk to senators, bring them to talk to the White House, it just was part of opening up people's minds to what was possible. So even the people who weren't directly working on the bill or weren't you know, had mixed feelings about the first step back and wanted more, that never got in the way of creating this overall sense, and it would surprise people and it would just help move things forward. This was a very non-linear process, and this kind of Christmas miracle right at the end when we passed it. Don't forget, we passed that bill and Trump signed it and handed me the pen hours before the federal government shut down for the longest shutdown in American history. I mean, in other words, America couldn't even agree with itself enough to keep its doors open. But right there at the end, it agreed to open up the doors and let people come home from prison. It was a Christmas miracle. And every little crazy piece of magic and unbelievable stuff that went into it created that moment. And had you taken any part of it out, we wouldn't have been able to pull it off. So it really was a Christmas miracle.
And Brandon, who helped you push this over the finish line?
Yeah, I mean, Van, just like for starters, you know, going back to the earlier part, you don't find public figures that are putting themselves out on the line to fight for something this challenging at this challenging of a time, who is willing to have documentary filmmakers be there, present, film every step of the way, and capture it honestly. Van, just huge shout out to you for just opening up your life to us in a way that really allowed us to tell that story in a really honest way. I know how hard that's been. I just want to give a huge shout out to the crew and the team that worked on this. Their editors, cinematographers, composer, my mentors. I mean, there's a whole, you know, you saw it in the end credits, people that worked years on this project. The participants, Doug and Tylo, are 2 of 10 amazing people from Los Angeles and West Virginia who are on the front lines fighting for their communities every single day. They opened this film. They opened themselves up to us really in really difficult ways. So a lot of gratitude to them, and just all the funders, all the supporters, everyone, all the people that took a huge leap of faith on this project. You know, this was not an easy film to make. You know, what Van and Cut 50 and Tylo and Doug, everyone was going against the grain. Every single person was doing something that was really hard and really difficult, and to capture it was also really difficult. And I just have a huge amount of thank yous and gratitude toward all the people that believed in this project over the last 5 years. And we're really honored to be here at AFI DOCS sharing it with all of you.
And thank to all of you, the audience, for watching the film, and thank you for spending time with us for this Q&A. We appreciate it. Please look up Lonnie, Tylo, Doug. I think Tylo needs her own documentary, so please look at the work they're doing. And if you want to know about the film, go to docs.afi.com to learn more about the film. We appreciate it, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.